Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's a Ukrainian show on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star, and we have guests today, Dr. Jonathan Lockwood. Welcome to the show. And also,
there I am. Okay.
great. And we have Ivan Kucherenko from Kyiv, Ukraine. Welcome to the show, Ivan.
Hello, Sasha. Hello, Jonathan. Hello to everyone.
So yesterday it was exactly 3 years since the start of this war, or the active part of the war, or I would say the real war, when there is a clear aggressor who attacked the country of Ukraine with the idea to either to destroy it or completely reform it, put their own government. And essentially that would mean basically a slavery for Ukrainian people. And what's yesterday there was United Nations a meeting when unfortunately US sided with Russia to not to call Russia aggressor, with a few other countries, mind you, but still, Ivan, what people are saying in Ukraine about this? How they can explain it?
In Russian, there is a great word for this situation. Russians are saying "Испанский стыд." I've tried to find something which is equal in English and found such words as vicarious embarrassment. It's what is happening now, and of course, Ukrainians have a great sense of humor, and we are joking that after the North Koreans, meanwhile, we will be fighting American troops on the side of Russian, probably according as it goes. But besides the jokes, I just wanted to show you today a video. It's 10 minutes long video, but it's with really great people who really understands what's going on, who knows. Despite the President Trump, they know the history, and they know how history ends. And unfortunately, neither President Trump nor his team, Marco Rubio and other guys who were making deals with the Russians, they probably studied history in school very badly. They missed those lessons, and every time, as history shows, every time when people try to not to consider history lessons, not to take in count the history shows them just an opposite reaction. So let's watch this video right now, and after that we can discuss it.
Better one time to see than 100 times to listen to.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The war in Europe in World War II was fought by an alliance of two countries attacked by Adolf Hitler, Great Britain and Russia, Soviet Union. Neither country could have survived the war without the other. Great Britain and the Soviet Union were eventually joined by a third ally who played the decisive role in winning the war, the United States of America. Those three allies had very different governments and very different people leading those governments. The Soviet Union's dictator, Joseph Stalin, never trusted his English-speaking allies. He always worried that one of his allies would try to negotiate an individual peace agreement with Hitler. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt and British Prime Minister Winston Churchill feared the same possibility with Stalin, but the alliance held all the way to the end of the war, with the president and the prime minister repeatedly promising Stalin that they would not engage in separate peace negotiations with the mass murdering dictator Adolf Hitler, who invaded the Soviet Union. We now know how different that would have been if the United States had a president like Donald Trump during World War II. Donald Trump broke with the United States allies fighting Russian dictator Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine by sending a delegation led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio to a meeting in Saudi Arabia to negotiate with the murderous dictator Vladimir Putin's representatives. Here's the way Senator Marco Rubio saw Vladimir Putin before becoming Donald Trump's Secretary of State.
A gangster in Russia is threatening NATO, threatening the unity of Europe, and now expanding his reach into the Middle East at our expense.
That is the way Winston Churchill and President Roosevelt talked about Adolf Hitler's march across Europe, invading every country along the way, the countries that are now unified against Vladimir Putin's Hitler-style invasion of Ukraine. Here's what Secretary Rubio said today about his meeting with the people who work for what he used to call a gangster in Russia.
I came away today convinced that they are willing to begin to engage in a serious process to determine how and how quickly and through what mechanism can an end be brought to this war. Whether we can ultimately reach that outcome will obviously depend on every side in this conflict's willingness to agree to certain things.
Joining us now is Timothy Snyder, professor of history at Yale University. He's author of the New York Times bestsellers On Freedom and On Tyranny. Professor Snyder, I just want to add one more thing that was said on this same day that Secretary Rubio said that, just to show us how Donald Trump has stacked the deck now against Ukraine, who he apparently blames for the war. Let's listen to what Donald Trump said today about Ukraine.
I think I have the power to end this war, and I think it's going very well. But today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal.
You should have never started it. He's saying that to Ukraine.
Yeah, it's ghastly. Ukraine was invaded by Russia in violation of every fundamental principle of international law. And the Ukrainians have resisted far better and far longer than anyone would have expected or had a right to expect of them. And by resisting, they've allowed the rest of us throughout the West, throughout the world, to have a chance to engage in more or less normal politics for the last 3 years. They've held off darkness for so many other people. So the contemptuous way that Trump is treating them is not only wrong, it's morally disgusting.
And you point out there's a difference between negotiating and talking. What do you see actually happening in Saudi Arabia?
The crucial thing here, as you suggested earlier, is that the Ukrainians are not actually present. It's a little bit like it's 1941 and the United States meets with Nazi Germany to decide the fate of Great Britain without inviting the British. That's where we are right now. We are meeting with the aggressor. We are meeting with the representatives of a man who was indicted for war crimes, and quite rightly so. We are legitimating this war of aggression by meeting with the representatives of the aggressor state. And we are marginalizing the people, the nation, the Ukrainian state that were attacked. Negotiation could take place between Ukraine and Russia about peace. It can't take place between the United States and Russia about peace because the United States and Russia are not at war. If the United States wished to bring an end to this war, and if Mr. Trump is right that he has the power to end this war, the way that that would look would be that the United States would make it harder for the aggressor to fight and easier for the state that's defending itself, Ukraine, to do so. But that is not what we are doing. If anything, we are throwing our power on the side of the aggressor, which is not going to bring peace. It's more likely to bring a longer and a bloodier war.
How does what we're seeing now compare to, say, what Henry Kissinger did in the Nixon administration that got the phrase shuttle diplomacy. Kissinger would talk to one side in the Middle East exclusively, and then Kissinger would go and talk to another side in the Middle East, and in the hope that that could come together into something. It never did come together into something lasting in the Middle East, but there was that was a version of talking to one side at a time.
Yeah, I mean, there's no coherence to what the United States is doing formally. We've got a special envoy to Ukraine. We've got a special envoy to Russia. The special envoy to Ukraine wasn't at the talks in Saudi Arabia, just as the Ukrainians weren't at the talks in Saudi Arabia. The Americans speak publicly about what they're doing in ways that are totally contradictory, with some American officials saying that we'll strengthen Ukraine, all the way to Donald Trump saying Ukraine might not even exist at the end of this. So there's no coherence to this, except the underlying formal problem that we've left the Ukrainians out of it entirely. And the other thing which has happened, which is the United States has started to make demands on Ukraine. The other thing that Trump talked about today was that Ukraine should have presidential elections, which is a Russian talking point. The Russians are demanding that they have a say in how Ukraine is run, and the Americans are now echoing that. And at the Munich Security Conference, where I was a few days ago, the Americans demanded that Ukraine hand over half of its mineral wealth, half of its economic income, essentially, forever, in exchange for nothing in particular. So it's looking awfully like what we're doing is that we are using the threat of Russian violence to try to get things ourselves. That is a far cry from attempting to be a mediator in an ongoing conflict.
What should happen next?
What should happen next is pretty simple. I mean, in an ideal world where the U.S. were making sensible policy, what we would say is the United States should assist Ukraine. We should go up from the measly figure of 0.15% of GDP. We should help them more. And we should enforce sanctions on Russia and make it harder for Russia to prosecute this war. Trump is right about one thing. The United States does have the power to end this war, but it would have to make positive policy in a sensible direction. If you want a war to end, you have to make it harder for the aggressor and easier for the defender, not the other way around. In the world that we're actually in, where it doesn't look like American policy will be sensible, this has to be the hour of Europe. The Europeans have to make sure that Ukraine can defend itself, and they have to offer all the economic aid that they possibly can, beginning right now.
Donald Trump has never been able to mount an argument about anything without lying. And one of the interesting lies he tells about this war is he wildly exaggerates the number of casualties on both sides, puts it up into the millions, which isn't even close. And that is seemingly, if you can translate it into something that could have intention, to make himself seem even more heroic by stopping these millions of deaths, which are not occurring.
He's trying to make it seem like he's the one with any power. You know, a week ago, I was 20 miles away from the front in a city called Zaporizhzhia. And as you drive along the main boulevard, you see buildings that have newer bricks and older bricks. And the reason for that is that the Ukrainians repair the buildings. As soon as the Russians destroy something, a road, a building, a hospital, they repair it. I was there to open a school, which was built in 6 months, which is an extraordinary thing under rocket fire and bombing. The entire school was underground, and students were there very happy they could be in school. Ukraine is attacked. Things are destroyed, people are killed, and they keep fighting, they keep rebuilding. They have been doing this essentially on their own for a long time. Their country is not the wreck that Donald Trump is describing. Their trains run on time. Their roads are clear. Their cities function right up to the front. He's trying to create this idea that the Ukrainians are hopeless and Zelensky hasn't done anything, which is exactly wrong. They've been valiant, and we ought to be respectful and appreciative, and we ought to be on their side.
Yeah, it's very difficult to add anything to this. And I have only one question, is maybe Jonathan, you would be in the right situation.
I'm figuring, okay, I got a 50-50 chance of getting this question. There's two of us.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Actually, if you wish, maybe Ivan will answer first, and then you will follow up.
Whatever.
And it will be easier because you will have a little bit more time to
Yeah.
think about it. Although what I'm asking is quite obvious.
Your
So-
turn with a grenade. Your turn with a grenade, Ivan.
No grenade. Look,
No grenade. Okay, very good.
Just questions, okay.
Yeah.
just a question. I'm trying to figure out from different Trump statements, from what's going on in the last week or two or whatever. It is obvious, let's face it, that there will be no further help from US to Ukraine. It's done deal because obviously Trump hates Zelensky, he hates Ukraine, and the fact that he's asking for some 50% of mineral wealth, and in first draft, now I'm quite familiar by now with first draft. Second draft, not so, but soon will. In the first draft, there was absolutely no mention of future U.S. help to Ukraine. There were 50-50 split, and there was basically, it's not even agreement, it was more like a term sheet, really. But even in a term sheet, at least it should have mentioned that beside agreement of 50-50 to develop these natural resources. In addition to that, U.S. is going to provide Ukraine with unspecific, let's put it this way, amount of help, including the military help, the weapons, the financial help, or whatever. There was not even mentioning of that. So instead, Trump was trying to place that as that 50% is a repayment of a previous help. And he put previous help number at $350 billion, which is so far from the truth as it could be, because I've listened to different estimation. It's more likely $72 billion. Even that is not 100% would be justified, but at least the number is vastly different from 350. So this is why I'm spending my time and yours as well for discussing this document, just as another point to prove beyond any reasonable doubts there will be no further help from US. Now, if that's the case, what US is doing at negotiating table? They're not party of war, they're not fighting neither Ukraine nor Russia, but they are negotiating. So negotiating, it's kind of a third party that is equally interested in bring both parties to a peace agreement. Now, what's happening lately, especially with yesterday's votes in the United Nations, it is obviously now that that so-called arbitrator, United States, is siding openly with one of the two parties that they're trying to negotiate between. How that is possible? Should Zelensky proudly say, United States, thank you so much for your help in the last 3 years. You helped Ukraine to stand on its own, and we really hope to have a great relationship between our countries. But for now, thank you very much. One more time. Ivan, what do you think?
Probably this is the way, actually, because what we see, President Trump is not a politician. President Trump is a businessman, and what he's doing now for the United States is trying to make money instead of spending money. He wants to rebuild relations with Russia. He wants to bring back a possibility for American companies to do business with Russia, to invest in Russian economy and all that stuff. But as Professor Snyder said, it's morally disgusting. Just imagine during the Second World War II, United States doing business with Nazi Germany. Instead of supporting Great Britain, they will join Nazi Germany and help them to conquer Great Britain by covering themselves with a message that we just want to end this war. Of course, it's a quick way to end this war, assist one country to achieve a victory, and that's way. So I hope that Ukraine. I agree with Professor Snyder that luckily for Ukraine, now there is another counterparty, European Union, and which was not possible during the Second World War. The Great Britain was on their own after Hitler conquered the whole Europe, and the Great Britain was just a remaining island of freedom. It was Hitler's mistake that he started the same way war with the Soviet Union. I just want to remember that before starting war with Soviet Union, they were allies. They've partied both, and they've divided Poland. Soviet Union grabbed a part of Poland. Hitler grabbed another part of Poland. They've signed a pact of Molotov-Ribbentrop before that, and they were happy. Two dictators happy in dividing the Europe. That's what's a great future for Putin and probably for Trump. Trump has seen himself as authoritarian leader, as a dictator. He won't sign some kind of agreement with Putin and just divide the world and spheres of influence. And he wants to do as much money on this case as possible by getting actually reparations from Ukraine, because those mineral agreement, it looks like in previous versions, it looked like as reparations that Ukraine was defeated in this war and have to pay tribute back to United States for their losses, probably, though that military and economic help which Ukraine received during the term of President Biden was in form of grants. It was not in form of loans, which President Zelensky said. It was agreement between him and Congress of the United States, majority of congressmen with President Biden, that it was a form of grant help, not a loan for Ukraine. After that, Trump will want to grab some minerals from Greenland to conquer Greenland and to do other stuff. But by to make a tax war with Canada, with Mexico, with other countries, and probably he will earn quick money for United States, several billion of dollars, which United States will achieve on these deals, which will look like so profitable for Trump and his team, for Elon Musk as well. But what the price? What would be price for that, and what would be strategic losses for the United States in global period of time as a geopolitical leader, as country which defeats the democracy principles across the world, as a country which actually supports their allies. Then allies of the United States will see that any future president and another, maybe President Trump will decide to change the constitution of the United States to stay as president for several longer terms, like his fellow Putin is doing in Russia. It may be also a good case for them. Do the Americans want such president? I'm not sure. What I see there is that the rating of President Trump is decreasing. One of his lies was that President Zelensky is supported by only 4% of Ukrainians, which obviously a lie, because according to the very fresh sociological research, President Zelensky is supported by by almost 60% of Ukrainian. And after those lies from President Trump, after President Trump claiming Zelensky that he's a dictator, actually not Putin is a dictator, not Trump is wants himself to be dictator, but that Zelensky is a dictator. The rating of President Zelensky in Ukraine increased even more, because Ukrainians they may like or may not like Zelensky or some other politicians, but it's what Trump, what Putin cannot understand. Only Ukrainians are allowed to say who is dictator and who shall they support, or who shall they re-elect, or even who shall they can throw away, like was with President Yanukovych after Maidan, which was managed to flew from to escape from Ukraine to Russia, because his policy was not in favor of Ukrainians. He was turning. He actually was doing what that President Trump is doing with America. He just decided to turn Ukraine from Western Atlantic integration inside of Russia, to say Ukrainians that, okay, you will not be part of European Union, you will not be part of Atlantic integration, but now I want you to be a part of Russia, because I am sympathized by President Putin, because I am getting paid by President Putin, whatever. And now President Trump is doing the same with the United States. He's turning United States back from their European allies, from Ukraine, from European Union, and says that he wants to do business with international war criminal Vladimir Putin. This is ridiculous.
Still the same question now to you, Jonathan. I just want to add one thing, that recently Zelensky visited Turkey and had meetings with Erdogan, the Turkish president, and they have pretty good relationship throughout the years. And Erdogan several times mentioned that he would love to help Ukraine and Russia to achieve a peace. And don't you think, Jonathan, that maybe, well, unless you will justify Trump's role as a negotiator, and that's the best what Ukraine can have, maybe Ukraine should look at alternative negotiators in this situation? What do you
Well,
say?
I would agree with that. I would agree with that part. Including more negotiators, including more parties, would be a very logical and rational policy for them to follow, given this situation. I would also note, however, that President Trump and Macron had a discussion in which President Trump stated that he hoped that Ukraine would be able to recover some of its occupied territories. Now, this is interesting because it's contradictory. It looks contradictory to the rest of the traffic that's going on and messages. So what's interesting about that is that if he hopes that Ukraine is going to be able to recover some of its territories, then would that imply behind the scenes that they are going to get assistance? We don't know that. We don't know if they're not going to do it or going to do it. So it's very interesting. It's a very interesting message. What's also interesting is that Ukraine still, of course, on the battlefield is still pummeling the Russian forces, and they are taking increasing, and their momentum is slowing, and they are not making nearly as much progress. And I think it was one analysis said that if the Russians at the current rate of Russian advance, they would be able to occupy the whole of Ukraine in 83 years, which is really a snail's, but not at the rate of losses that they're continuing to take, and all the other economic and industrial factors are not moving in favor of Russia. And what's obviously what Russia's trying to do is they're trying to achieve at the negotiating table what they cannot possibly achieve on the battlefield. And again, Ukraine still has, as I've been asserting all along, and as this one book here, Why the USA Needs to Support Ukraine. It was published about a year or so ago by Joseph Anthony. And he lays out, I would highly recommend it to our viewers and listeners. It is very cogent and lays out the things very well. And he also, just luckily enough, happens to agree that the Crimea is of central importance in this war. And that the Russia wants it. What does Russia have that Ukraine wants? Nothing. What does Ukraine have that Russia wants?
Everything.
Yes. And they have the access to free access to the Black Sea, possession of all of Ukraine's food resources, mineral resources, industrial resources, not to mention the military industrial plant, which they have very conveniently built up. They would have all of this. And so Russia has every reason from its perspective to be the aggressor. They're not defending against a Ukrainian invasion unless you count that little Kursk salient, and it's not exactly a reason. So the interesting thing is that, as I still contend, in the mix of all of this, while no peace or negotiation or agreement has been finalized yet at all, and the Ukrainians are saying they do not want to have a forced peace which favors Russia forced upon them. The United States is sending conflicting signals. The reason it is sending conflicting signals, it is because the United States, as I've stated before, has not formulated a clear, coherent national security strategy for how to deal with the rest of the world. They have shown signs of going back to a partial isolationism, but they have not formulated a grand strategy, let alone a national security strategy on how to deal with the rest of the world. So that's why you see these conflicting signals coming from President Trump and from other people in his administration. So I would say that as difficult as it sounds, I'd say I'd be saying, wait for it, because I'm contending that Ukraine still has that card to play of launching its own operational surprise, and I'm still contending that it could very well be in Crimea.
Jonathan, thanks. I agree with almost everything what you just said, but
almost. Wouldn't expect 100% agree.
I'll go almost concerning that when you say that the United States hasn't formulated its foreign policy, I would like to mention that there is none, and under Trump, there will be no coherent policy at all.
Well, what you're saying is essentially it's going to be pure, as I once said to my students, is ad hocery.
Absolutely.
Completely ad hoc, responding to each separation, responding to each event in a vacuum. It's not connected to anything else.
Remember, he is transactional president, so he will see where situation develops into his favor and then strike in that direction, trying to get a maximum of benefits available from there. And then, okay, he's got that deal. Okay, what's next? Okay, he'll look around.
So you're arguing effective for an opportunistic form.
Absolutely, that's all what it is. But I'd like to mention something. Ivan, I think you know, and maybe you, Jonathan, too, Professor Illarionov.
Larionov. Okay, he wrote quite. I believe if it's the same Larionov that I'm thinking of, I cited a number of his articles in the book, The Russian View of U.S. Strategy. So he has been studying he's been studying U.S. strategy for a very long time.
Well, he's now located in U.S. and he's within one of the top institutions, military oriented. Now, I've listened to very interesting interview. Maybe I even sent links to both of you. And he's talking about the, frankly, on many occasions, I disagree with his views, I must tell you. But this one, it was 100% agreeable to me. And what it is he's discussing the security guarantees of Ukraine, because right now, okay, everybody understands the benefits to have a peace, at least temporary, at least ceasefire or something, okay? The main question is, what are security guarantees that Ukraine may rely on? So for next, I don't know, a year, 3 years, 5 years, there will be no further attacks from Russia. Trump's thinking at the moment is that, well, look, if Russia and Putin are our friends, we are not going to attack Ukraine, obviously. So Russia and Putin will not attack Ukraine as long as they are our friends. So what kind of security guarantees you need? You don't need any.
That might be a misinterpretation on President Trump's part on what Abraham Lincoln once did during the American Civil War. And it was recalled that he had a Secretary of War who did not get along with Abraham Lincoln at all, and as a matter of fact, regularly disparaged him. And his friends asked him why he appointed such a man to be Secretary of War during the American Civil War, and in effect. But this man worked very well for Lincoln during the American Civil War, and his response was, "Do I not destroy my enemies when I make them my friends?" Now, very wise policy for Abraham Lincoln during the American Civil War. However, applying it in this instance, if in fact, and I'm only speculating, if in fact that's what President Trump is trying to do by, in effect, destroying his enemies by making them his allies, that would be to me a very questionable way of dealing with a country like Russia, which does not have a really concept of compromise, does not understand the concept of contract, and its version of security is безопасность, which means without danger, essentially meaning that all of its neighbors, in order for Russia to feel secure, all of its neighbors must feel insecure by definition.
But that's exactly what we discussed just a few minutes ago. With the Second World War, in the United States, which was not at war yet, they could go to Hitler and looking at him as a future enemy, while it's not yet, to say, look, Adolf, what's your problem? Okay, what do you need? England, okay, just let them leave, just stop this war against them. Okay, we will help you to get a peace with England. It will be nice peace, good for you, good for England. We will be very fair negotiator and arbitrator, so you don't worry about anything, Adolf. What would you say?
And as was pointed out, oddly enough, in a movie about the Battle of Britain, where the Nazi foreign minister is speaking to the English envoy in Switzerland, saying this is, look, Hitler offers guarantees. And the envoy replied, our experience is that Hitler's guarantees guarantee nothing. So
here is what Illarionov said about the Ukrainian guarantees, what Ukrainians are trying to seek. He's saying that there is no guarantees, no country or consortium of countries in this world that can provide actual guarantees to Ukraine against further Russian aggression. There is none. Because let's see, even if Trump would say, okay, America is ready to guarantee. Guarantee what? Remember 1994 Budapest Memorandum? Who was guaranteeing? United States and UK. What's happened with those guarantees? I don't understand still why Zelensky doesn't bring Budapest Memorandum to the table in negotiations with Trump and US. Now, what Illarionov says, though, okay, let's imagine America is prepared to guarantee. Let's see, they said that they will send their troops to guarantee this peace. And where are the troops? Oh, they didn't arrive yet. They're on their way. They will arrive soon. They have to have a stopover in Italy. They want to go to Lake Como for a few weeks to rest. So there will be a better rested, and then they will come. Okay, and from Lake Como, the weather is not so great. So they will go back to Paris. And from Paris, they will start coming to Ukraine, provided that the weather will be okay and there are enough trains and so on. Well, we are looking for more trains be available. Let's imagine that they finally came to Ukraine. And in 2 weeks' time, Donald Trump says, enough is enough. We don't want to get our troops to risk their lives for some Ukraine. Are you crazy? Remove them all back. What kind of guarantees? Are you like a childish talk about guarantees? There are no guarantees in this world. So what could be a guarantee for Ukraine? I'll tell you what it could be. It's 1.5 million strong Ukrainian army.
Now there's a good. There's a very, from the Ukrainian perspective, it might be not. It's not the ideal alternative, but building up the Ukrainian armed forces, just like they've been building up their military infrastructure all along, Sasha, they have been increasing their own indigenous military production capability.
Absolutely.
They have been doing their thinking independently of the United States, right? They're not following the United States lead. This is how you should fight the war. No, the Ukrainians have their own perfectly logical concepts and innovative in many respects. And the U.S. military could learn some very valuable lessons from, as a matter of fact, General Petraeus said that the Ukrainians have been providing some very useful lessons for the United States military to learn in its future development.
And what is the price, actually? I agree with you, Jonathan. How much costs those experience which Ukraine is sharing with the United States, real-time battlefield experience of United States and NATO
It's virtually
weapons?
priceless. It is. You can't really put a price on it. It goes beyond just the mere dollar transactional figure for military assistance. What Ukraine is doing against its wishes, really, they're forced into this, but by producing their own strong independent military force that is capable of resisting and inflicting outsized casualties on the Russian military forces, and that trend is continuing. The Russians are not militarily being any more successful than they were at the start of the war. They are incrementally moving forward, but at a very high cost, out of all proportion to what they are actually gaining, starting to resemble World War I. But
actually, I've noticed that neither Russia nor the United States made any concessions to Ukraine. They want Ukraine to, okay, there is no NATO for you, you have to have elections, there's so many demands from both United States and Russia, and there is no single concessions from either one of them.
From the Ukrainian standpoint, they have to shuffle the deck. So to cause a reshuffling of the deck, and the way you do that is with a military operation that inflicts a visible, unmistakable operational defeat on Russian forces.
And it's regrettably that Zelensky spent so much time and energy on this red, earth.
The rare earth minerals.
Minerals. It's a sidetracks him instead of planning next attack, starting planning attacks against Moscow and other cities and do exactly what you have to do during the war. He is involved, and now he says that he is ready to give up his presidency for NATO membership or some other crazy stuff or so on.
Sasha, luckily, Zelensky is not planning military operations. Military operations are being planned by the military HQ, by Commander Chief Syrsky, by Ukrainian General Staff, and Zelensky just approves as
You got it.
he approves these operations. So hopefully, while Zelensky is doing all those negotiations with the mineral deal and with the negotiations with the United States, Ukrainian military are just doing their job, and they're defending Ukraine and the Europe against the Russian invasion, and they're planning future operations hopefully will show the whole world and the United States and President Trump especially that Russia is not so powerful as they want everyone to consider them to be. They're weak, and they're going weaker with every day. So hopefully we will see it in upcoming months.
Excellent.
Yes.
If you would be close to me, I would kiss you.
Oh, well, I wouldn't go so far. I wouldn't go quite so far. I would give you a big hug, and then I would buy you a beer.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Sounds like a good plan.
And some Garilka too.
So, yeah, but I am confident, Ivan, that the Ukrainian General Staff, as innovative as they have been in the past and continue to be now, I am almost metaphysically certain that the Ukrainian General Staff is quietly presenting to President Zelensky, here is a selection of military operations which we could undertake, any one of which will prove could have some decisive political effect on this whole outcome. So they certainly have plans, and at some point in the near to intermediate future, President Zelensky may opt to say to his general staff, okay, let's go with this operation and see what happens.
Hopefully they will not discuss it with...
Oh, no. No. They at this juncture, with all the conflicting signals coming from the United States and European allies and Russia, keeping absolute secrecy would be in their best interest. In this case, there's a saying: it is better to beg forgiveness than to ask permission.
Absolutely.
We will discover what is happening from the news, and hopefully this will be as great news as were during the start of Kursk operation, during the liberation of Kharkiv region, when Russian forces, they assumed to be so weak that when they just saw the Ukrainian troops advancing, they just dropped all their weapons, all their tanks, and run very fast by foot. In case of Crimea, they will have to swim very fast over the Black Sea on themselves.
I've never seen the Russian swimming team winning any Olympic medals, so their skills aren't probably that good.
That's why they need the Black Sea to be better trained.
They need more practice.
I hope most of them will drown, actually, and this is
can't say that
hope for every Ukrainian.
Yeah. Listen, I would like to thank you both for today's program. I think we covered a lot of ground. There are some questions remain, but maybe by Friday we will have even more information available.
If you don't like the way the situation is going right now, just wait 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. There would be better news for sure. In the meantime, thank you so much, and we'll see you on Friday, same place, same time. In the meantime, Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye, everybody.